everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today, we're going to be taking a look at all of the Kaleidos palettes that I have, which is all of these. I have all of the smaller 6-pan palettes. I also have the two larger, like 15-pan palettes, and then the new Flower Punk palette. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be swatching all of the shimmers, and we're going to see which ones are similar to each other, which ones aren't. There are a few unique shimmers I found, but there are also some that are a little bit similar. And so I wanted to show you guys all of that so you can see which palettes would give you the most unique shades, which ones are going to be kind of similar to each other. So just wanted to run through all of the swatches with you guys. So that is what we're going to be doing today. So the way we're going to do this is just based on color similarity. So the first shade up that we're going to be taking a look at is all of the kind of goldish orange shades. And there are 3 palettes where we see that kind of color. So the first one is going to be from the Sci-Fi green palette, which is the Futurism 1. So here's the shade from the Sci-Fi green palette. Very nice gold shift on there, very pigmented, not sheer at all. And that is definitely something that I've noticed with a lot of the Kaleidos palettes, is that we're gonna have different formulas. And so even though the shades might look similar as far as like color goes, the formula might be different, where some of them are gonna be more opaque, others are more of like topper shades. So the second gold shade that we have is gonna be from the Futurism 4, which is the VR Neon palette. And that one already to me looks a little bit more orangey rather than just outright gold. Definitely more orange toned rather than yellowish gold. And then the last of the gold shades is going to come from the Futurism 7 Sashimi City palette. And this guy to me looks like it's going to be the lightest out of all 3. Yep, definitely more of a champagne-y type shade, and also has a little bit of a shift on there. So rather than just being a bold metallic like these two, this guy looks like it has a little bit of like a gold to almost greenish to pink shift. So you could almost look at that as like a multi-chrome. So very, very nice. But we're definitely seeing how those are not at all the same, even though they are within the same color family. All right, so the next shade up is going to be more of like the pinkish, rose-ish type shades. And that is definitely one of the shades that we see the most throughout. Like, I've got, I think, 6 palettes where we see somewhat of a pink shimmer going on. So gonna be a lot for this guy. So first palette up is going to be the Futurism 2 Cyber Bronze palette. And that one to me looks a little bit like a deeper type burnt rose shade. Yeah, definitely more burnt rose. And so I think that that one probably is going to be the most outlier out of all of them, where it's not really going to fit in with those like lighter pink type shades. Then we have from the Futurism 3 Astro Pink palette. This one is definitely already going to be more lighter toned pink. Almost has a little bit of a lilac undertone to it. Very, very pretty though. Yeah, I definitely think this guy has almost a bit more purple rather than pink shade. So next up we have from the Futurism 7 Sashimi City palette again, another pinkish tone, although this one definitely looks again like it's a bit more of a multi-chrome. And so we're gonna see some definitive shifts going on there. Yeah, so definitely has a pink shade, but also shifts to gold and then kind of yellowish. And I'm definitely going to re-swatch this one with some of the more purple shimmers. So then next up from the Escape Pod palette, we have several shades that are more of the pinkish tones. And the first one really could fall between orange and pink. And so I'll have to see which way this one goes. There's that guy. Yeah, definitely more of a lighter type orangey champagne shade, very transparent as well, and so that's definitely more of a topper shade. Then the next one that we have is definitely going to be more pinkish, but kind of like a magenta-y pink. So a little bit similar to the pink tones from this guy, just that this one is more of that multi-chrome, whereas this guy I would say is more of a duochrome, that it just goes between pink and kind of an orangish shade. So next up we have the Club Nebula palette, and for that guy we have a few that could kind of fit into the pinkish side of things. So first this guy, which is definitely more sheer, I would say is actually very, very similar in tone to this guy, just that the pink is a little bit lighter of a pink, but the shift is the same as far as going from pink to kind of orange to gold. So those two are definitely more similar, just that the pink runs a little bit lighter. Then we have more of a hot pink again, which, yeah, this guy definitely looks similar to this one as I am looking at them. The only difference being that the base of this one is a little bit more pinkish red, whereas this one is a little bit more of a corally red. Then we have the first of the Flower Punk shadows, and this guy is definitely pink pink. There you go. But again, okay, so there are 3 shades. This guy, this one, and this one that are very similar, especially like these two look really similar to each other, where it's like definitely pink to kind of goldish to champagne shift on there. I'd say the only difference on there is that the formula for this one is a little bit of a more chunky metallic, whereas this one is a little bit of a softer metallic. But the shifts, like as I am looking at them especially, are definitely the same. All right, so next up we're gonna be doing the greenish to yellow kind of grungy type shades, because there are definitely several of those that we're gonna come across. So the first palette for that is gonna be the Futurism 1 Sci-Fi Green palette. We're gonna do it on this side because I'm running out of room on the other side of the arm. All right, so there's that guy, and definitely like a coppery type olivey green shift on there. More opaque, definitely not a topper type shimmer. Then we have 2 from the Escape Pod that I already kind of feel like are just similar to each other in general. So I don't really know why the 2 of these are in the same palette. So the first one up is gonna be this guy. A little bit more on the lime green side rather than the olivey tones that we're getting with that one. And also a little bit more sheer. Then here's the second shade from the Escape Pod. It's a little bit deeper than this one, actually more similar in tone to this guy. I would say those are like your 3 variants of an olive green. Then from the Club Nebula palette, this guy to me is not really one that fits in with the other greens, just because it's like a bright green rather than like one that has more olivey undertones, but it's the only other green and I didn't want to leave it out. So here is this guy, and yeah, you can already see more minty green undertones on that one, definitely more sheer, and it does have a shift to it from green to pink. There you can kind of see on the top that pink as it's trying to focus. So there's that shift. Whereas these guys don't really have a shift to them, they're just true metallics. All right, and then the last one is from the Flower Punk palette, and this is back to more of that grungy, goldish green. And I would say that this guy is more similar to this one, but I would say it's the most goldish olive, whereas these have a little bit more green in them. But all 4 of those shades are definitely similar with the amount of like grungy, goldish green going on. And as I'm looking at it in the natural light, I think the 3 shades that are the most similar are this one, and this guy. So next up, we're gonna take a look at more of the bluish tones that are definitely gonna be more shifty, so it'll be interesting to see if they're actually similar to each other or not, because looking at them, it could really go any number of ways, because they're all different variants of like a turquoisey type blue. So the first one up is going to be from the Electro Turquoise palette, which is the Futurism 5. There's that guy, and this is definitely like one of my favorite shimmers out of all of the palettes. It is not quite as opaque as some of the others, but you can definitely build it up to be pretty opaque. Has a really nice blue to kind of goldish shift. Very, very nice. All right, and then the other one is going to be from the Flower Punk palette. And this guy to me, also not quite sure which way this is gonna go. It looks more minty to me. Just a little bit lighter on there, a little bit more of a green undertone to it. And then this guy also has that like green to pink shift. You know what? Let's go into the Club Nebula and swatch that Firefly shade again, because I kind of wonder if that might be super duper similar. Okay, yeah, so I definitely think that those two shades are more similar rather than the bluish one. Just that the green portion on this guy runs a little bit lighter, more like a silverish green, whereas you're getting like a true mint green from this one, but they both shift from green to pink. All right, so next up we have the like purplish blue shifts. And so we're gonna start off with that one with the Futurism 3 Astro Pink palette. And this guy is definitely like a deeper blue to purple. Yeah, but you can definitely see there's the purplish to the blue, and it has definitely that kind of grayish undertone. All right, so then the next one up is gonna be from the Futurism 6 Lunar Lavender palette. This guy I would be interested to see because it looks like it's got a shift between like several things. So we have right here, yeah, definitely lighter. Even though, so it definitely has like a blue to purple, but it finishes with pink. So that's a multi-chrome. You can see the blues and the purples with that lighter pink kind of finish on there. So definitely completely different, even though they do both have like a blue to purplish shift. Even though as I'm looking at it in the palette, this guy looked like, there's the blue. Like you see what I, like that looked like it was gonna be super similar to the other ones, so. Surprise. All right, and then the last one is going to be from the Club Nebula palette. There we go. Okay. This one is back to that kind of grayish undertone and definitely has a blue, I would say like blue, but the shift is not so much of a shift. It's more just that it has like pinkish purple sparkle mixed in with it. There you can see that shade. So definitely all of them are very unique to each other, even though the general shift concepts of colors are the same, very different tones. So now we're just gonna get into the actual lilac-y purple shades, see what we get with that. First up, we're gonna go back into the Astro Pink palette and re-swatch that lilac-y shade because I think it's gonna fit better with the purples than it did with all of these kind of orangey pinks. So here's that one first. And definitely you can see like with it up against this other purplish shade there, much more that it's a purple shade. Then we have back into the Lunar Lavender palette, the lighter of the two metallics. There we go. Ooh, she is light. Okay. Very sheer, where you can see that this guy is more opaque. This one comes across as very sheer, but it does also have a shift from like a light lilac to a pinkish to gold. So I would say that one is kind of similar to these guys over here. If we take a look at those, like both very, very light on there with the shifts. Just that I think this one starts off ever so slightly more purple, whereas this guy starts off with that pink. Then we have in the Escape Pod, I would say two different shades, just because one of the two I was kind of like, I don't know to put this in the pinks or the purples. But the first one up is definitely belonging in the purple one. Also very, very sheer and has a shift between like pinkish purple to goldish. There you can see definitely sheer like this guy is. Little bit of a deeper purple than this guy had, but still very, very light in tone. So then in comparison to that, I have a feeling that this guy is gonna be super duper bright. Yeah, this is like a hot magenta-y purple. Look at, oh man, yeah, that's okay. That's probably a unique shade. I think we can definitively say that. That guy doesn't really line up with anything else. So very nice shade right there. All right, and then we do also have one shade from the Club Nebula palette that is a bit of a lilac-y purple. So there we go with that guy. Also pretty sheer, and I would say has almost a bit more of a silvery undertone, and it definitely shifts from purple to gold. I would say that like looking at this shade to this one, this is like the slightly deeper lilac version of this, but they both have that purple to gold shift on there. There is one more shade from the VR Neon palette that I think could kind of go, I'm unsure because it looks like it's going to be a hot magenta, and so I wouldn't necessarily say that it fits in with these, but it does have a bit of a shift to it. Yeah, definitely very magenta, but I'm noticing like a goldish shift with it, but also a little bit of a purple. So that guy kind of goes all over the place. And it's definitely not the same as this other purple, which definitely runs way more purple. So I think that ends up also being a bit of a unique shade. So the last of the shades where I see some commonality is going to be like a lighter iridescent white type shade. And there are two palettes that have that type of shade in there. So the first of those two is going to come from the Electro Turquoise palette. And this guy definitely has like a bit of a champagne-y type undertone to it. So there's that guy. Very sheer, very sparkly, doesn't really have much of a shift that I can see. So you can see where it's just a super light champagne type metallic. And then from the Club Nebula palette, definitely more of an iridescent that has like several shifts to it. And that is this guy right here, which you can already see the difference on there, that even though they're very light and opaque, this guy has like a pink to purple to blue shift to it. Actually almost ends up being more similar to this guy as I'm looking at it. And it's kind of interesting, just that this guy doesn't have any blue shift with it and this one does have a bit of a blue. But as I'm looking at them on my arm and what I'm seeing in the camera, they do look kind of similar. All right, and then the last thing to take a look at are the unique shades that we have. And there are two palettes that we did not cover with unique shades because I definitely think this magenta is a unique shade, and I think that this purple is unique, and this kind of sea foamy blue is unique. And then of course we've got just like really this whole color, like I could get behind this color story. Like it's like blues to purples to kind of pinkish. I could get behind that. But there are definitely several shades that are completely unique. And so we're going to start off with the Futurism 2 Cyber Bronze palette. And that has two shades that definitely don't show up in any other palette. The first of which is more of a silver metallic, and it looks a bit like a foil. And there you go. Yeah, that guy completely unique on there. Just a really nice silver foil. And then the other shade from that palette is going to be more of a reddish metallic, but a very, very nice, just kind of scarlet tone on there. And both of those are super duper opaque. There is no transparency going on whatsoever. They are just very solid, opaque shades. And then from the Futurism 3 Astro Pink palette, we have the last unique shade, and this guy I would say is not quite a shimmer shade. It's more so that it's like one of those mattes with sparkles in it, and that is the really nice black shade that they have. It has like those little sparkles in it, little silver sparkles that you can kind of see on there. So these are all of the shimmers that you can get in all of the Kaleidos palettes, and definitely like these guys all turned out to be super, aside from the one right there, these are all very, very similar. All of the greenish gold metallics. On this side, there were definitely a few, like these two right here, that had very similar shifts going on. These two had very similar shifts. Yeah, I think that out of all of them, the peachy type metallics and the olivey green metallics were the ones where you could definitely see some similarities. And if we're looking just at the new Flower Punk palette, out of the three metallics that you have in here, two of them, this guy right here and then this guy right here, are already two that you could definitely come across in another palette. Now, I will say that even though the shimmers are similar on there, the matte shades I think are a little bit different, especially on this side. Even in the Sci-Fi green palette, where you would be thinking that you could come across more of these like olivey mustardy tones, even there you don't. It's not the exact same thing. And so if we're looking at both of them together, the only similar shade that you would have on there would be this guy or this one to this shade right here. The other shades are different. So I think that's at least nice that the matte shades are a little bit more unique, because otherwise it would be a little bit disappointing if like the metallics and the matte shades were all kind of the same. But your purples and bluish shades are all very nice and unique. I think that all of the goldish orange ones are more unique. I would love to know what you guys think of all of the different shades. Do you agree with my assessments on what shades are similar? Are you seeing something different in the camera than what I'm seeing in real life? But I would love to know what you guys think. Do you like this kind of video where I'm just comparing all the different shades on there and swatching it for you guys? Let me know either way. Give me a thumbs up if you did like the video. And if you made it to the end and you have not yet subscribed, I would love it if you would subscribe. You can see a whole lot more of just a really colorful indie brands, all of the things. We talk about all of it on here. And so feel free to join my family. We've got a whole bunch of really awesome videos for June scheduled. So just make sure to stick around to see all of that. And yeah, other than that, that was my video. And you guys just go have a good one.